Did you delete the first one so you don't mix them up when you're sending them?
On January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation that called for the liberation of the slaves in the United States. Present-day human trafficking, also known as present-day slavery, is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some kind of labor or commercial sex act. This heinous crime takes place right under our noses. I personally believe that I had a close encounter with this last spring. On a run, I noticed I was being followed by a red truck. A man drove up to me asking a series of weird questions. He started off with a question about the directions he needed to go to Marketplace. After I told him and was going on my way, he then asked me more personal questions like where did I live, how old was I, my relationship status, did I go here. These are all tactics in order to get me to go with him. I believed it was a hoax, and I quickly got out of the situation. Many people believe that they don't have to worry because it will never happen to them. But the truth is, it can happen to anyone. And it is important to know the signs that people aren't always who they say that they are. Today I will talk about the tactics traffickers use to get recruits, then how to avoid them. This will lead us to identifying victims to potentially give them help. According to the Department of Homeland Security, human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion in order to obtain some kind of labor or commercial sex acts. Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide. My first visual aid shows us who the victims of human trafficking are. The first study is out of the 526 cases where the victim gender was reported. Of that 526, the female took up 83% of it. Male was 16%, and gender minority was 1%. Next, out of 327 cases where victim nationality was reported, 57% were citizens of the United States, and 43% were foreign nationality. And lastly, out of 398 cases where victim age was reported, 72% were minors, or were adults, and 28% were minors. In order to protect yourself, it is important to know some tactics traffickers use to recruit victims. Traffickers promise false jobs like modeling or promises of love, so relationships, marriages. They promise safety, places to stay. They use other victims like children. They're going to leave a child and then you're going to walk up to him and they're going to get both of you. They often impersonate people that we should trust. Uber drivers, you get in and they take you to their stash house. They impersonate doctors, nurses, police officers. Someone pulls you over and they're not a cop, they take you. According to GuardianGroup.org, traffickers often target young, naive people, those who look or act vulnerable. In this visual aid, we can see more women than men are targeted by traffickers because they're more vulnerable, they're usually weaker, they're easier to lure into their rings. So in the sexual exploitation, 98% of them were women, and then in the labor, 60% were men and 40% were women. In total, 45% were male victims and 55% were female victims. When I was on my run, I was alone, but there were a lot of other college students out at that time. They were riding bikes, other people were running, there were dogs found being locked, but I was alone, so he chose me. I now take precautions. I run with pepper spray, as not safe as that probably is. I carry a taser with me at all times so I can hopefully protect myself in case this ever happens again. I call my boyfriend when I have to take the trash out in my dorm because I'm scared someone's gonna try to take me. These are some things that other people can use to protect themselves as well. Also, avoid false friend requests from media such as Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, weird messaging sites. Dating apps are a big thing. People aren't always who they say that they are. Now that we know how to protect ourselves, we will switch gears to identify victims and potentially save someone's life. According to the U.S. Department of State website, reaching into the community through your campus is a good way. Sometimes the best we can do is just spread the knowledge, like what I'm doing right now. It's just, if you're aware of it, you can avoid it, you can take precautions like I do every day. Another way is to learn through trainings. There's trainings online, there's trainings at local fire departments, there's all sorts of trainings to how to identify trafficking victims in order to help them. According to domesticviolenceshelters.org, a few signs someone is being targeted are as follows. They have lots of debt and bad living conditions. They're fearful, anxious, or submissive in behavior. They have no access to health care. They're usually beaten and starved and hurt. They can't get health care because you can't go without giving them your name and your address, and they don't usually have one. They avoid eye contact because that's how traffickers avoid getting caught, is they're not seen. They have a lost sense of time. They're kept in cages, beaten and starved. There's not a clock, and so they don't know. And they appear malnourished. They don't feed them. They beat them and they use them for what they need them for, and that's all. They don't care if they live or die. If you or someone you know is being targeted, please call the Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. To wrap things up, I have provided 4 sources, given ways to protect yourself, and how to identify others dealing with human trafficking. I've talked about my personal encounter and how I protect myself on a day-to-day basis from something like that ever happening to me again. Now I hope you can be safe and maybe save someone else's life. Human trafficking is a heinous crime, and together we can take a stand. Thank you.